Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another book review. So today I'm reviewing Where Would You Like to Go? Where Would You Like to Go by Kim A. Ran, translated by Jamie Chang. So I'll explain what the story is about, how it reads, and why it matters. So it's again a very human story, a very humanistic story. What do you do with grief when the only answer your phone can give to where do people go when they die is where would you like to go? The story follows Myeongji in Edinburgh after the loss of her husband, and it moves between quiet routines, memories, and one sided conversations with Siri that cannot solve anything but reveal what she needs to face in her private life. So I'll try and show how Kim links private mourning to public tragedy and how the voice stays clear and restrained, and how the last pages turn toward recognition rather than easy comfort. So, hello, I'm Barry. This is Soul Book Club. Today, we're reviewing a short story called Where Would You Like to Go? It's by Kim Ran. And the Korean title of the story is 어디로 가고 싶으신가요? And the English translation was published in 2016. And I believe the Korean original was also published that year. And Kim's career spans over 2 decades now. She made her debut back in 2002, and she is a very popular writer here in Korea and has won several major literary awards. And thanks to a growing number of English and French translations, has also built an audience outside of Korea. Kim is still perhaps most famous for her novel My Brilliant Life, which I've reviewed on the channel. You can find a video review of that. And that was a bestseller in Korea. And it was also adapted into a hit film and then subsequently translated into several languages. But she's very prolific and also a very talented short story writer, as today's story proves. Where Would You Like to Go is a painfully sad story set in the aftermath of the Sewol ferry tragedy. So, the Sewol ferry tragedy is one of the most shocking tragedies in modern Korean history. It happened on April 16th, 2014, when the Sewol ferry sank on its way to Jeju Island. 304 people died, including 250 high school students. And I've reviewed short stories from other Korean writers in the past, such as Ha Song Nan, who have attempted to reflect on this terrible event. So, how does Kim Iran approach the subject? So, Kim was teaching a writing workshop in Edinburgh, Scotland, when the disaster happened. And in her afterword to the story, she talks about the emptiness and desolation she felt after it happened. And that's what many people in Korea felt in the days, weeks, and months that followed. And Kim writes very movingly about the way many people struggled in the aftermath. And she also notes that Korean artists and writers were confronted with the pointlessness of words and creativity in the face of such an unthinkable tragedy. It was almost beyond comprehension. Does any art offer any, even some small consolation in the aftermath of something so horrific? And Kim writes, I know these words are nothing next to I want to hold you again, my daughter, or Mom, can I see brother again if I die? The words will never transcend death, but I hope they may pay quiet, abiding respect before the insurmountable. And that's what she tries to do in this achingly sad story. So, what is the story and where would you like to go? And how does it connect to the Sewol ferry disaster? So, the story begins with a Korean woman named Myeongji traveling to Edinburgh. And she's going to Scotland to house sit for a friend. And we learn that she is relatively recently bereaved. Her husband has died, and initially, we don't know exactly what has happened to him, although later we learn that he died in the Sewol ferry sinking. He was a school teacher who died trying to rescue a student. This is a fictional story, so these aren't real people, but they are inspired by these by the real events. And the first section of the story is a portrait of grief. So if you've ever lost someone, you'll know how difficult it is to try to deal with that loss and begin to move past it. And that's what Kim is interested in writing about at first. We see the emptiness and depression the woman is going through. She gets a stress rash and wanders through the streets. sort of aimlessly and mindlessly. She reminisces about the small details of her life with her husband and generally sinks further and further into depression. And one thing she remembers is that her husband used to ask Siri, the AI speaker, questions, sort of, any little everyday question. What's the weather in France, whatever. And this inspires her to do the same, and it becomes a significant aspect of the story. So I'm sure many people will be familiar with Siri. I can't remember. The Siri is the Apple virtual assistant. What Alexa is the Amazon one? I guess there's a few of them, right? And anyway, it becomes quite a significant part of the story. So, what is Kim doing by having this bereaved character sort of reach out to this artificial intelligence speaker for comfort and consolation? So, there's a few different ways we can look at this. On the one hand, it reminds her of her husband. She's just copying his behavior by asking Siri these sort of silly, inconsequential questions. And in some small way, this makes her feel close to her husband again. In another way, however, she is sort of searching for some kind of real answer, some kind of genuine answer. She can't get any consolation from the people around her, and so she sort of finds some solace in asking this device questions. But ultimately, this is unsatisfying, right? Because of course, it has to be. And so, at one point, Myeongji asks Siri, "What is pain?" And all Siri can do is offer sort of technical definitions or examples from academia or popular culture and things like that. And these definitions and examples, of course, they can't affect or alleviate the very real pain that Myeongji is experiencing. And later, Myeongji asks, where do people go when they die? But of course, Siri can't answer meaningfully and can only reply, where would you like to go? And these interactions are painful because you have this a woman suffering from a type of pain that we will all experience at some point and not being able to find any comfort. So, how does Kim tie the Siri element of the story to the Sewol ferry tragedy? Towards the story's conclusion, we find out exactly what happened to Myeongji's husband. We learn he died trying to save a student. And when Myeongji leaves Edinburgh and returns home, she receives a letter from the sister of the student that her husband died trying to save. And so, reading this very genuine and heartfelt letter about the loss of a brother, Myeongji reaches some kind of understanding and comes to some kind of acceptance of her grief and maybe even the tragedy as a whole. And it's very moving, and it's quite emotionally complicated. And Kim does a very good job of sort of leading the reader through that complexity. It's a very, very sad and somber story, but also a powerful one. So, anyway, thank you for watching this review of Where Would You Like to Go? If you've read the story, please leave a comment, or if you have any recommendations for what I should do next, just leave a comment and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next review.